Welcome to the panelists and distinguished panelists and the participants. So I'm going to present what you call, as he said, that about the macro level about this climate change. And when I'll just share my presentation before I take up the matter. My presentation talks of origin of the carbon story. When I say story, this is the story of the past, story of the present, as well as story of the future. Why is that? Because the climate change, everybody is aware of it. My forefathers might not have felt the impact of it. And whereas we are seeing, you and I are seeing what's the impact of this climate change. And we're also seeing the future, that is the children and their children, how they are going to be affected by the climate change. Therefore, it is a story of the past, present, as well as the future. When I present the facts, I'm presenting in such a way that what existed earlier, what is happening now, what is going to happen in the future with respect to the climate change and impacts in a macro way. And from there on, I think my friend, Mr. Mohan Reddy will take over. Yes. If you see this evidence, this evidence is available for a long time from the scientists and other experts. And the evidence says that there is a link between emissions and global warming. More the emissions, your warming will go up. And the impact is seen in every region. It's not India, it's not Bangladesh, it's not Europe, or it's not US. Every region on the earth is facing the impact of the climate change. And GHGs or impact is not a new problem, because even as early as about 125 years back in 1896, a Swedish scientist predicted that changes in atmospheric carbon dioxide levels could substantially alter the surface temperature through the greenhouse effect. This was done in 1896. We are seeing now the same thing, because normally in the case of greenhouse, natural greenhouse effect is there, where the gases in the atmosphere will trap the sun's light and keep the planet in a warm position. Otherwise, we cannot live in this planet. What happened is that when more gases are released with the consumption of the fossil fuels, more heat is trapped in the atmosphere, and that is warming the earth, leading to the global warming. Global warming is responsible for the climate change. So this is the impact of this greenhouse effect. It was suggested in 1896 itself. Unfortunately, we could not paid any attention for it. UNFCCC was formed after the Earth Summit held in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil in 1992. What is the object of creating this United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change is that to stabilize greenhouse gas concentration in the atmosphere so that it would prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate system, because what you call is anthropogenic is man-made. So to prevent that, they said that these gases should be stabilized. Then there is something called Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It is formed in 1988. It was formed by two institutions, namely UNEP, that is United Nations Environment Protection Agency, as well as World Meteorological Organization. These two have formed this IPCC to assess the scientific evidence in respect to climate change, and it impacts on various categories, whether it is species or human beings or the sea levels or the droughts or the food production. These people have been making elaborate reports with a lot of evidence, because these are manned by the renowned scientists in the world, all over the world. And they are bringing these reports called assessment reports in every 5 to 6 years. The last assessment report was made by them in 2021. This report says that we cannot rule out catastrophic outcomes because of the climate change. That is 2021 report, as latest as possible. Then, who should own the problem? The problem is caused because of excessive consumption of fossil fuels, right? Whether it is diesel or coal, whatever it is. All these days, this was done by the developed countries, whether you call it Europe or USA. They have used these fossil fuel resources such a way that these greenhouse gases has increased and the global warming has gone up, causing this climate change. If you look at our GDP, we have a GDP of all this world is about $95 trillion is the world GDP, whereas India alone is about $3.5 trillion. And what the developing countries have been asking these developed countries that spare about $100 billion every year so that this amount can be utilized whenever they face a problem, whenever they face a calamity, so that some mitigation can be achieved. So that was not acceptable for anybody. Whereas we are prepared to spend about $1.1 trillion for a defense budget because to kill each other. Okay, this is the budget of only top 5 countries. We have about $1.1 trillion and we are not able to spare about $100 billion, which is for the good of all the people, particularly the vulnerable sections of the society. And the top 5 greenhouse gas emitting nations have lost about $6 trillion between 1990 to 2014 because of the calamities of the climate change. And India alone is estimated to have suffered about $87 billion as per the World Meteorological Organization in 2020. And when it comes to Chennai has about 440 billion rupees due to 2015 floods alone, because whenever the rainy season starts, they will get some kind of, calamity in the form of a heavy downpour, which inundates everything and then, cause all these kind of losses. And when you come to the case of, vulnerable countries, you observe that as recently as in 2022, Pakistan has lost 1/3 of its, land due to floods, and about 33 million people have been displaced. This is not just Pakistan. And what is its responsibility? Is it responsible for the climate change? Not at all. It's a poor country, right? And not able to meet even their both ends. Similar is the case with this California wildfires. Then you have a lake drying out in eastern France. So many evidence are there which say that because of the climate change, a lot of things are happening which are not good for the humanity. Then you have tried many protocols. It started with the Kyoto Protocol. It was signed in 1997. The protocol says that developed nations should finance the developing nations in setting up of emission reduction projects. They can set up a renewable energy project, they can set up a waste energy projects, and whatever emissions have been generated will be purchased by the developed nations to meet their own targets. That was the Kyoto Protocol. And, we have been taking all kinds of projects, billions of dollars have been shared, changed hands from developed countries to developing countries. But ultimately it's found that, but there is an issue here. What the issue says that a project will be viable only with carbon finance. A project will be viable only with the revenue generated out of sale of carbon funds. The question is that, will anybody start a project? It's not viable. Therefore, the stories could not be taken for a long time. And the prices that were ruling around $16 to 16 euros per ton of carbon dioxide has fallen down below $1. That's how the protocol has failed miserably in 2012. Then the people have been negotiating, countries have been negotiating, what can be brought subsequently? In 2015, all the 194 countries have come together. They say that we will sign an agreement. They call it in Paris Agreement because it was executed in Paris in 2015, which says that let us keep a cap on the temperature rise below 1.5 degrees above the pre-industrial level temperature. At that 1.5 degrees, what the IPCC says that it is possible to save the planet. Then what happened is that each country is supposed to release something called intended nationally determined contributions. They are nothing but climate plans. The climate plan should specify what they are going to do to mitigate their emissions. For example, India will say that I'll improve my agriculture, I'll reduce the energy intensity of agriculture. India will say that I'll use all my waste to energy or to biodiesel or whatever it is there. Or they say that we will increase the capacity of the renewable energy. Like that, they give a plan for it and say that we will do this way to mitigate to reduce the emissions. These are all climate plans. These plans are supposed to be given every 5 years. The second update has been done in 2022, where they update the measures what they intend to take. But only thing is that you have a binding obligation, but there is no penalty for failure to achieve the target. So this is one of the lacunas of this Paris Agreement. Now, the Paris Agreement has brought a lot of awareness among the countries because of the, what they should do in order to, protect the climate. So they brought the terms like net zero. Net zero is nothing but whatever emissions are generated in the by an individual or by an organization or by a country, it should be balanced through removals of the equivalent amount, either through renewable energy efficiency, or investment in nature-based solutions, afforestation, like that, and bring down the things to zero. What they say is that by 2030 they should be able to bring down by 50%, and by 2050 they should be able to bring down the balance. Each country has given their own targets, and Japan said I'll be able to do it by 2030. Europe and US said 2050, and a country like UAE, United Arab Emirates, they said they can do it in 2050, whereas China and India have taken a little higher time of 2060 and 2070. It's obvious because, we have about 1.4 billion people, and majority of the people still require that their standard of living is to be improved. Therefore, government of India thought that they need to take little more time to bring that net zero to India, so they have given about 2070. And I was told that Pune has declared that intent to work on a net zero of 2030, which is, I think, much better than India's target of 2070. So the context, what I would like to say that why Chennai cannot lead among the Indian cities, because, Chennai has the resources, Chennai has the intellectual manpower. Why they can't, take this lead among the Indian cities? If you come to GHG emissions of top 5 countries, absolute figures if I take, for the 2019, China is about 12.06 billion tons, whereas we stand at 3.36 billion tons, and US about 5.77 billion tons. So China is leading the entire because they are setting up left, right, and center all the coal plants. And when I go to the per capita consumption of each of these countries, if you see that, China is because 8.41, whereas USA is 17.54 tons. Why? Because the population difference between China and USA. And when it comes to India, we are still at 2.46, tons per capita. If you see the sector-wise, which are the sectors that are contributing to the, this GHG emissions, electricity is the major sector, more having 1/3 of it. Agriculture is about 21%, manufacturing and construction 17%, followed by transportation. Buildings, again, they're about 5%, waste is 2%. This is sector-wise, distribution of these greenhouse gases in 2019. And we have a declaration in Glasgow that is in COP26, when the Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that my climate plan is like this. He has given 5 elements that he is going to impact in order to bring down the emissions. He called them Panchamrit. This Panchamrit has got 5 things. One is reach 500 gigawatts of non-fossil energy capacity by 2030. Non-fossil fuel energy comprised of the ethanol energy, then biodiesel, then electric vehicles, and propane, these kind of things, which are not fossil based. So they said 500 gigawatts by 2030, and reach 50% of your installed capacity of electricity through renewable energy sources, whether it is wind, solar, hydro, etc. And you have what you call, cutting carbon intensity by 45% by 2030 over 2005 level. This is through energy efficiency and all those measures or technology transfers, and cut total projected carbon emissions by 1 billion tons by 2030. Okay, so with these things, what he has suggested, and he has declared net zero by 2070. This is what we are going to do. I think we are doing pretty well as far as these targets are concerned. And the expected scenario is that India's 2021 CO2 emission was 2.88 gigatons in 2021. And in the regular scenario, business as usual scenario, we don't do anything. It is going to be 4.48 gigatons. And Panchamrit's target, we said that is about 1 billion tons. So it comes down to 3.48 gigatons. And thereby, our emissions are getting reduced by about 22%, which may be an ambitious goal, but not impossible. And India is a role model for one reason, because If we achieve 1 gigatons by 2030, per capita CO2 is coming still down by about 2.31 tons, which is quite incredible. And US still at the time will be for 9.42 and European in 4.12, UK is less 2.7, and China is about 8.88 tons of per capita. So India is clearly far ahead of all these countries. And if you see the other thing, there are solutions available for achieving the mitigations. Everything revolves around the renewable energy, hydrogen energy, and energy efficiency, waste to energy. These are all things which can be done by any person. You find, for example, you put about 10,000 square feet of solar rooftop, you save about 500 tons of carbon, and you have got so much capacity available in these cities. If you touch these cities, put a mandate that everybody should go for what you call a rooftop solar. People are putting. Still, I'm telling that if something can be done, maximum emissions can be reduced. And every 1 million liters per day of water gives about 6,000 tons of CO2 reduction. Every 100 KLD will, in a central air condition, if you can change the water, top of water, you get about 600 carbon tons. So many more examples are available. This can be used by the individual houses, by the malls, by the hospitals, by the commercial buildings, IT parks. All these things will reach there. So what is the summary ultimately is that climate change is not a fiction, it is real, and you have got abundant scientific proof to prove that climate change is happening. And least developed countries and the poor in the city are the most affected people because they don't have any fallback mechanism. And rich countries, in order to protect themselves as well as protect the planet, they need to transfer funds as well as technology for implementation of these carbon reduction projects by all the countries. And Chennai can lead with this initiative with carbon matrix at the center of climate action plans. I think this is what my brief is that, and I request Mr. Krishna Mohan Rao to take up from here onwards. Unless you have any other question to me.
Thank you, Mohanji. We'll come back to you. And I'm sure there'll be questions, thoughts, insights that we will get from the two distinguished panelists, both the Shahs who are here. Jagan Shah has been with the National Institute of Urban Affairs. There's so much more that he's done, and we will put some profile of his on the chat box soon. Jatin Shah is now the president of Focus, an architect, interestingly, who is now being nominated and appointed as the president of the Forum of Critical Utility Services. What is an architect doing in critical utility services is a question that many would want to ask. And when you listen to Jatin Shah, who is from Colliers, India, you'll begin to see how architecture has to go beyond the envelope. I'm aware that architect K.T. Ravindran is also here, and we will listen to him too at some point in time. Asking is, Chennai inspire green city plans? Can corporate Chennai inspire such climate action? Can other such stakeholders also do this? That was essentially what we wanted to do in this first of the series. Once we set a tone with this first one, I'm hoping, we all are hoping at in-house that the dynamics will evolve over the next few sessions. Kirti said that we will have 4. I don't know, maybe we'll have 6, depending upon how we get the right leaders, the right thinkers to push the envelope, push the dimensions of this central thought.
Thanks, Dr. Hariharan, and thank you, everyone. I think this whole session has been very enlightening, and someone already put it on the chat box. It's very enriching. But I have a few questions, Mr. Hariharan, if you allow me to ask this esteemed panelist, because I think I will never get a chance to do that. May I start with Mr. Mohan of a few things, and this is a learning for me, sir. What do you think top 3 or 5 commitments which us as building industry practitioners should actually be, making sure that we implement that on our project? Our message goes loudly, and I will see to it that it's done through the Focus channel when we do it pan-India, but we will, I'll just go around and possibly with you, Mohan sir.
Basically, the actions which normally anybody can take very easily, in my view, is renewable energy, energy efficiency, water management, and waste management. These are all the 4 elements that are available for any industry, for any commercial building, or for any hospital. And these can be done because you've got solutions available ready-made. Whether even what you call, if you talk of renewable energy, the only problem is the policies of the government. They brought policies, they say that they restrict the kind of capacity you can install. I have a capacity to install about some megawatt of power in my premises, but the regulation says that you cannot do that. You can only go up to 50%. So this is one constraint. The central policy is something and state policy is something. So this is where the conflict is there. Otherwise, everybody is interested to set up as much as possible the renewable energy. Similar is the case with energy efficiency, which is the most profitable one according to me, because the payback is almost less than 2 years. If I invest on energy efficiency intervention, my payback is less than 2 years. What better investment can be there? So one is that you are getting back your money. You are also helping to reduce the emissions. That is second one. Third one is the water solutions. What Dr. Hariharan is a pioneer in this, that is the most easiest way to treat the water, and waste minimization. You've got several ways out there for waste minimization. Therefore, according to me, these four can be implemented very easily. For example, if you take the case of Chennai, the Chennai Municipal Corporation is promoting the municipal waste. They are trying to make bio CNG out of that. Already about 6 projects have been sanctioned. So this way, I think that much change can be brought out with respect to these things, sir.
Thank you, sir.